Chapter 1. The Gala Crisis. Sofia Castellano had exactly 47 minutes to save the most important presentation of her career, and her laptop had just died. No. She jabbed the power button again, as if sheer desperation could resurrect the blank screen. The hotel suite's elegant lighting suddenly felt oppressive, the cream-colored walls closing in as panic clawed at her throat. The Hartwell Innovations annual gala started in less than an hour. 200 investors, partners, and tech industry giants would fill the ballroom downstairs, expecting the product launch that would define the company's next decade. Sofia had spent 3 months perfecting every slide, every transition, every word of the presentation that would introduce their revolutionary AI platform to the world. And now her laptop was dead, taking the only copy of the presentation with it. Her phone buzzed. A text from Dominic Hartwell himself. Status update? Sofia's fingers trembled as she typed back. Minor technical difficulty. Handling it. Minor. Right. Because catastrophic failure sounded so much worse. She'd worked for Hartwell Innovations for 2 years, clawing her way from junior marketing associate to senior director through sheer determination and 80-hour weeks. She'd earned Dominic's trust, his respect, and a salary that had finally allowed her to pay off her mother's medical bills. This presentation was supposed to be her crowning achievement, the moment that proved she belonged in the big leagues. Instead, she was going to walk downstairs and tell her boss, her brilliant, demanding, impossibly handsome boss, that she'd failed. The suite door opened without warning. Sofia's head snapped up, and her heart performed an acrobatic routine that would have impressed Cirque du Soleil. Dominic Hartwell stood in the doorway, looking like he'd stepped out of a Forbes cover shoot. His black tuxedo was perfectly tailored, emphasizing broad shoulders and a lean frame that spoke of disciplined gym sessions between board meetings. Dark hair, slightly longer than conventional CEO style, was pushed back from a face that managed to be both aristocratic and approachable. But it was his eyes, steel gray and unnervingly perceptive, that had always undone her. Those eyes saw everything, including, she was certain, the panic she was trying desperately to hide. Sofia. His voice was calm, measured. Want to tell me what handling it actually means? She straightened her spine, smoothing down the midnight blue gown she'd chosen for tonight. The dress had felt like confidence when she'd put it on an hour ago. Now it felt like armor that wouldn't hold. My laptop crashed. The presentation file won't open, and the backup drive isn't responding. She forced herself to meet his gaze. I'm working on recovering it. How long? I don't know. Something flickered across his face, not anger, but something more complex. He stepped fully into the suite, closing the door behind him. The click of the lock seemed unnaturally loud. Show me. Sofia gestured to the desk where her dead laptop sat like an accusation. Dominic moved past her, and she caught the scent of his cologne, something understated and expensive that always made her want to lean closer. She'd trained herself not to notice these things. Noticing led to wanting, and wanting led to the kind of workplace complications that could destroy a career. She'd seen it happen to other women. The promising executive who dated a superior and found herself sidelined when things ended. The brilliant analyst whose affair with a married board member had tanked her reputation. Sofia had worked too hard to let attraction derail her future, even if that attraction had been growing stronger every day for the past year. Dominic examined the laptop with the focused intensity he brought to everything. His fingers moved across the keyboard with surprising delicacy for hands that large. Sofia found herself watching those hands, remembering the time he'd steadied her when she'd nearly fallen during a team-building disaster, the warmth of his palm against her elbow lingering for hours afterward. The hard drive's fried, he said finally. Completely corrupted. Sofia's stomach dropped. Then we cancel. Reschedule. I can have it rebuilt in a few days. We have 200 people downstairs expecting the launch that's been hyped for months. Our competitors are watching. 3 venture capital firms are deciding whether to invest based on what they see tonight. He turned to face her, and the intensity in his gaze made her breath catch. We're not canceling. Dominic, there's no presentation. Unless you want me to do an interpretive dance of our AI capabilities, you don't need the slides. He closed the distance between them in 2 strides. You know this product better than anyone except me. You've lived and breathed this launch for 3 months. You could pitch it in your sleep. I can't just... Yes, you can. His hands came to rest on her shoulders, warm and steady through the thin fabric of her gown. Sofia, you're the best marketer I've ever worked with. You don't need a safety net of PowerPoint slides. You are the presentation. The contact sent electricity racing down her spine. She should step back, maintain professional distance, but his touch anchored her when everything else felt like it was spinning out of control. What if I freeze? The vulnerability in her voice surprised her. You won't. His thumbs traced small, reassuring circles against her shoulders. But if you do, I'll be right there beside you. We'll do it together. Together. They'd always worked well together, his vision paired with her execution, his strategic brilliance balanced by her creative instincts. But there had always been a careful distance, a professional boundary neither of them crossed. Until now. Until he was standing close enough that she could see gold flecks in his gray eyes, close enough to feel the heat radiating from his body. Dominic. She meant it as a protest, but it came out breathless. We work together, she managed. This is we can't. His expression shifted into something she'd never seen before, something raw and honest that made her pulse thunder in her ears. We work together, he agreed, his voice dropping to a low rumble that seemed to vibrate through her bones. But not after tonight. Before she could process those words, he pulled her closer, eliminating the last careful inches between them. After tonight, he continued, everything changes. Sophia's breath caught. This was dangerous territory, the kind that could cost her everything she'd built. But standing in his arms, feeling the steady beat of his heart against her palms, where they'd landed on his chest, she couldn't remember why she'd been so careful to keep him at arm's length. The presentation, she started, will be brilliant. Just like you. His hand came up to cup her cheek, and she found herself leaning into the touch despite every warning bell in her head. But first, I need to tell you something I should have said months ago. A knock at the door shattered the moment. Mr. Hartwell? His assistant's voice carried through the wood. 5 minutes until the welcome reception. Dominic's jaw tightened, but he didn't step back. Instead, he pressed his forehead against hers, and Sophia closed her eyes, memorizing the feeling. We're going down there, he said quietly. You're going to walk out on that stage and show everyone why I promoted you. Why I trust you with my company's future. He pulled back just enough to meet her eyes. And then when it's over, we're going to finish this conversation. Understood? Sophia nodded, not trusting her voice. Good. He straightened, smoothing his tuxedo jacket as though he hadn't just turned her world upside down. But when he offered his arm, his smile held a promise that made her heart skip. Shall we? She took his arm, letting him guide her toward the door, and whatever waited on the other side. Her laptop was still dead. The presentation was still missing. But somehow, with Dominic beside her, the impossible felt almost manageable. Almost. Chapter 2. Spotlight without a net. The ballroom glittered like something out of a fairy tale. Crystal chandeliers cast prismatic light across tables draped in white silk, each centerpiece a careful arrangement of white orchids and silver accents. Waitstaff moved like choreographed dancers, balancing trays of champagne and hors d'oeuvres. And everywhere Sophia looked, she saw power, the kind of concentrated wealth and influence that could make or break a tech company with a single decision. Her stomach churned. Breathe, Dominic murmured beside her, his hand resting at the small of her back as they descended the grand staircase. You've got this. Easy for him to say. He'd been born into this world, even if he'd made his own fortune separate from his family's old money. Sophia had grown up in a cramped apartment in Queens, watching her mother work 2 jobs to keep food on the table. She'd earned her MBA through night classes and student loans, fighting for every opportunity while people like these had connections handed to them at birth. She didn't belong here, and without her carefully crafted presentation, everyone was about to realize it. Dominic. A silver-haired man in an immaculate tuxedo approached, his face lighting with genuine warmth. The man of the hour. Richard. Dominic shook his hand, then gestured to Sophia. You remember Sophia Castellano, my senior marketing director. Of course. Richard's smile was polite but dismissive. Looking forward to the presentation, my dear. Dominic's been talking up this launch for months. The words were kind, but Sophia heard the subtext. Don't embarrass him. We won't disappoint, she said, forcing confidence into her voice. As Richard moved on to schmooze with other guests, Sophia caught sight of herself in one of the ballroom's ornate mirrors. The midnight blue gown had been a splurge, bought specifically for tonight. It hugged her curves before flowing to the floor, making her look elegant and professional. Her dark hair was swept up in a sophisticated twist, and she'd actually taken time with makeup for once. She looked like she belonged. If only she felt that way. "You're doing it again," Dominic said. "Doing what?" "That thing where you convince yourself you're not good enough." He guided her toward a quieter corner, away from the growing crowd. "I can see it in your face." "I don't, Sophia." He turned her to face him, his hands gentle on her shoulders. "I've watched you work for 2 years. I've seen you turn impossible deadlines into award-winning campaigns. I've watched you charm clients who swore they'd never sign with us. You have a gift, and it has nothing to do with PowerPoint slides. Those clients expected polish, professionalism. They got carefully prepared pitches with data visualization and... They got you," he interrupted. "Your passion, your intelligence, your ability to make complex ideas feel accessible. That's what sold them. The slides were just window dressing." Sophia wanted to believe him. But the crowd was growing, the hum of conversation rising, and in 30 minutes she'd be standing on that stage with nothing but her words and her wits. What if I mess up? The question came out smaller than she intended. Dominic's expression softened. For a moment, the CEO mask slipped, and she saw something vulnerable beneath. "Then I'll catch you. Sophia, I meant what I said upstairs. We're in this together." Before she could respond, a woman's voice cut through the moment like a knife. "Dominic, darling." Sophia turned to see a stunning redhead gliding toward them, her emerald gown probably costing more than Sophia's monthly rent. The woman moved with the confidence of someone who'd never questioned her place in spaces like this. Dominic's posture shifted, tension settling into his shoulders. Vanessa. Vanessa. Sophia knew that name. Vanessa Kingsley, tech heiress and Dominic's ex-girlfriend. They dated for 6 months before a very public breakup splashed across society pages last year. Sophia had tried not to read the articles, but it was hard to miss headlines like "Tech's golden couple splits" and "Hartwell and Kingsley call it quits." "I heard about your little product launch tonight." Vanessa's smile was sharp as glass. "How brave, trying to compete in the AI space. You know, Kingsley Technologies just secured that contract with the Department of Defense for our platform." "Congratulations," Dominic said evenly. Vanessa's gaze slid to Sophia, assessment and dismissal happening in a heartbeat. "And you brought your... what was it? Marketing director? How sweet." The condescension in her tone made Sophia's spine straighten. She'd dealt with women like Vanessa before, people who thought a working-class background made you inferior, who used politeness as a weapon. "Senior marketing director," Sophia corrected with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "I'm sure you understand the difference. After all, your company's VP of marketing is Michael Chen, and he's brilliant. Senior positions require a certain level of expertise." The barb landed. Vanessa's smile tightened. "Indeed. Well, I'm looking forward to your presentation. I do hope you've prepared something substantial." She drifted away in a cloud of expensive perfume, leaving Sophia's hands clenched into fists. "Ignore her," Dominic said quietly. "Vanessa's company is struggling. She's trying to rattle us." "Is it working?" "Not even close." His hand found hers, fingers intertwining in a gesture that felt both natural and revolutionary. "You ready?" Sophia looked at their joined hands, at the way his thumb traced gentle patterns against her palm. This was crossing a line. Everyone who saw them would talk. There would be whispers, speculation, judgment. But Vanessa's disdain had reminded her of something important. She'd spent her whole life proving herself to people who assumed she didn't belong. She was tired of it. Tired of second-guessing herself. Tired of hiding behind professional boundaries. Tired of pretending she didn't feel the pull between her and Dominic every time they were in the same room. "Yeah," she said, squeezing his hand. "I'm ready." The lights dimmed. A spotlight illuminated the stage at the far end of the ballroom, and Sophia's moment of truth approached like an oncoming train. Chapter 3. Taking the stage. The stage felt enormous, empty except for a microphone stand and the weight of 200 expectant gazes. Sophia's heels clicked against polished wood as she walked to center stage, Dominic beside her. She could feel the crowd's curiosity, hear the whispers as people wondered why the CEO was accompanying his marketing director to what should have been her solo presentation. The spotlight was hot, making her skin prickle beneath the gown. She gripped the microphone stand to keep her hands steady. Dominic stepped up to his own microphone, his presence somehow making the stage feel less vast. When he looked at her, his expression held nothing but confidence. "Good evening," he began, his voice carrying easily through the ballroom. Thank you all for joining us tonight. For months, you've been hearing about Hartwell Innovation's next breakthrough, an AI platform that will fundamentally change how businesses interact with their customers. Tonight, you'll finally see what we've been building. He paused, and Sophia felt his gaze even before she met it. But first, I want to tell you a story about why this matters. He turned fully to face her, and suddenly the crowd faded. 2 years ago, I hired a marketing associate who'd sent me 17 emails over 3 months, each one more creative than the last. Most people give up after the second rejection. Sophia Castellano sent me a mock campaign for a product we hadn't even announced yet, and it was better than what my senior team had proposed. Warmth flooded Sophia's cheeks. She remembered those emails, the desperation behind each one. She'd needed that job, needed the salary and the opportunity, but she'd also believed in what Hartwell Innovations was doing. Since then, Dominic continued, Sophia has been the driving force behind every successful launch we've had. She doesn't just market products, she understands what people need, what they fear, what makes them trust a new technology. And tonight, she's going to show you exactly that. He stepped aside, giving her the floor. Sophia took a breath, then another. The crowd waited, polite but impatient. How many of you have ever felt misunderstood? She asked. Silence. Then a few uncertain chuckles. I mean it. Think about the last time you called customer service, and the person on the other end read from a script that had nothing to do with your actual problem. Or when you tried to find product information online, and you got buried in technical jargon. Or when you wanted to connect with a company, and you got an automated response that made you feel like just another number. She was moving now, the microphone cord trailing as she paced the stage. The words were flowing, muscle memory from 100 practice sessions taking over. That's the problem we're solving. Not with better scripts or fancier automation, with understanding. Real, genuine understanding of what each customer needs in that moment. She gestured, and even without slides, she could picture the graphics she'd designed. Our AI platform doesn't just process language. It processes context, emotion, intent. It knows when someone's frustrated and needs a solution right now, or when they're curious and want to explore options. It adapts its communication style to match each individual user. From the corner of her eye, she saw Dominic watching her with something that looked like pride. It gave her courage. Let me give you an example. Last month, we beta tested this platform with a healthcare provider. An elderly patient called about her medication, confused and scared. The AI didn't just give her information, it recognized her anxiety, adjusted its tone to be warm and reassuring, and walked her through each step slowly. Then it offered to send her daughter a summary, because it understood she might need family support. She paused, letting that sink in. The patient wrote to thank us. She said it was the first time she'd felt truly heard by a healthcare system. That's not just good customer service, that's connection. That's technology serving humanity, not the other way around. The crowd was leaning forward now. She had them. But here's what makes this revolutionary. Sophia moved to the edge of the stage, closer to her audience. Most AI systems get better over time through machine learning. Ours gets better through emotional intelligence. It learns not just what people say, but what they mean, what they need, what makes them feel valued. She talked about applications, healthcare, finance, education, customer service. She painted pictures of how this technology could transform industries, using real stories from their beta testing instead of sterile statistics. She made them see the grandmother getting help with her medication, the small business owner finally understanding her financial options, the student whose learning style was recognized and accommodated. And through it all, she felt Dominic's presence beside her, steady and supportive. Occasionally, he'd add technical details when she paused, the two of them moving through the presentation like a well-rehearsed dance, which, she realized, it was. They'd always worked like this, her painting the vision, him providing the foundation. When she finally wrapped up, talking about launch timelines and partnership opportunities, the silence that followed felt different from the beginning. This wasn't uncertainty. This was consideration. Then someone started clapping. Then another. Then the entire ballroom erupted in applause. Sophia's knees nearly buckled with relief. She looked at Dominic, and the expression on his face made her heart stutter. He wasn't just proud, he was looking at her like she'd hung the moon. Questions? He asked the crowd, his hand finding the small of her back again. The questions came rapid fire. Technical inquiries about the platform's architecture, which Dominic handled. Marketing questions about rollout strategy, which Sophia fielded. Partnership opportunities, pricing models, security protocols. They tag-teamed each one, falling into their natural rhythm. Vanessa Kingsley stood near the back, her expression unreadable. But she wasn't smiling anymore. Finally, Richard, the silver-haired investor from earlier, raised his hand. Dominic, Sophia, that was impressive. But I have to ask how much of tonight's success was planned, and how much was improvisation. Sophia froze. Had he somehow found out about the laptop disaster? Dominic's hand pressed gently against her back. Then he stepped forward. Actually, Richard, that's a perfect demonstration of what makes our team and our product special. Sophia's laptop died an hour ago. Everything you just saw? That was pure Sophia, no safety net required. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Sophia wanted to kill him, or kiss him, maybe both. That's either incredibly brave or incredibly stupid, another voice called out. Laughter followed. It's trust, Dominic said, his voice cutting through the noise. I trust Sophia's expertise, her instincts, and her ability to connect with people. That's the same trust we're building into our AI, the ability to adapt, to be genuine, to meet people where they are instead of forcing them through rigid processes. He turned to her, and something in his eyes made her breath catch. She's the best at what she does, he continued, still holding her gaze. And tonight proved it. The applause returned, louder this time. But Sophia barely heard it over the pounding of her heart. Chapter 4. Consequences. The after-party was in full swing. Investors clustered around the bar, already discussing deal terms. Tech journalists interviewed Dominic's development team, and Sophia found herself surrounded by people wanting to shake her hand, exchange business cards, tell her how impressed they'd been. It should have felt like victory. Instead, she felt untethered, like she'd jumped off a cliff and was still waiting to discover if she'd grow wings or crash. You're doing it again, a familiar voice said. Sophia turned to find Marcus Chen, Hartwell's chief technology officer, grinning at her. They'd become friends over shared late nights debugging product specs, bonding over terrible office coffee and dreams bigger than their paychecks. Doing what? Looking like someone just told you there's a test you forgot to study for. Marcus handed her a glass of champagne. You killed it up there. Why aren't you celebrating? Did you hear what Dominic said? About the laptop? So? It made you look even more impressive. Marcus's expression turned serious. Though I have to ask, what was that energy between you two on stage? Because it looked like more than just boss and employee. Sophia's stomach dropped. It wasn't, we're just, hey, no judgment. Marcus raised his hands. But people are talking. And you know how this company can be about workplace relationships. She did know. Hartwell Innovations technically allowed relationships between employees, but there were unwritten rules. Power dynamics were scrutinized. Women who dated superiors found their competence questioned. And Dominic was more than just a superior. He was the CEO, the founder, the face of the company. Nothing's happening, Sophia said, hating how defensive she sounded. We work well together, that's all. Marcus looked. Skeptical but didn't push. Well, whatever it is, don't let the gossips get in your head. You earned your moment tonight. He drifted away to join a group of developers, leaving Sophia alone with her champagne and her spiraling thoughts. She shouldn't have held Dominic's hand, shouldn't have let him touch her back so familiarly during the presentation, shouldn't have looked at him like what? Like he mattered to her beyond a professional capacity? But he did matter. That was the problem. There you are. Sophia spun around to find Vanessa Kingsley approaching, her emerald gown shimmering under the chandelier light. The woman's smile was perfectly calibrated, warm enough to seem friendly, cool enough to set off warning bells. That was quite a performance, Vanessa said. Very passionate. Thank you. I meant it as an observation, not necessarily a compliment. Vanessa sipped her champagne, her eyes calculating. You know, I've been where you are. Young, ambitious, caught up in Dominic's orbit. It's intoxicating, isn't it? The way he makes you feel like you're the only person in the room. Sophia's fingers tightened around her glass. I don't know what you're implying. I'm not implying anything. I'm stating facts. Vanessa's smile sharpened. Dominic has a pattern. He finds talented women, convinces them they're special, makes them believe in some fairy tale future. And then, when things get complicated, he prioritizes his company over everything else. Your breakup was a year ago. Maybe you should move on." The words came out harsher than intended, but Vanessa just laughed. "Oh, honey, I have moved on. I'm trying to save you from making my mistakes." She leaned closer, her voice dropping. "Did he tell you what happened between us? Why we really ended?" "That's none of my business. It will be, when history repeats itself." Vanessa's expression turned almost pitying. "I fell in love with him. Gave up opportunities because I thought we were building something together. And then his company hit a rough patch, and suddenly I was a distraction, an inconvenience, someone whose needs got in the way of his precious business." Sophia's heart hammered against her ribs. Dominic wouldn't what? Choose his company over a woman? Sophia, he already does, every single day. Why do you think he works 80-hour weeks? Why he hasn't had a serious relationship since me? Vanessa straightened, smoothing her gown. "Because nothing matters more to him than Hartwell Innovations. Not me, not you, not anyone." She walked away, leaving Sophia feeling like the floor had shifted beneath her feet. Was Vanessa right? Sophia thought about the late nights she and Dominic had worked, the way he'd canceled dinner plans when emergencies arose, the times his phone had buzzed with work notifications even during rare moments of downtime. He was dedicated to his company. It was one of the things she admired about him. But was it more than dedication? Was it obsession? "Sophia." She turned to find Dominic emerging from a crowd of investors, loosening his bow tie as he approached. Even disheveled, he looked devastatingly handsome. "I've been looking everywhere for you." He smiled, but it faded when he saw her expression. "What's wrong?" "Nothing. Just tired. You're a terrible liar." He guided her toward a quiet alcove, away from the party. "Talk to me." Sophia looked up at him, at the concern in his gray eyes, and felt her resolve wavering. This was the man who'd believed in her when she was nobody, who'd promoted her based on merit, not connections, who'd stood beside her tonight when she'd had nothing but her words and her courage. But this was also her boss, the CEO of the company where she'd built her career. Getting involved with him could destroy everything she'd worked for. "What did you mean?" she asked quietly. "Earlier when you said not after tonight?" Dominic's expression shifted, becoming intense. Exactly what it sounded like. "Sophia, I've been professional for 2 years. I've kept my distance, maintained boundaries, pretended I don't feel what I feel every time you walk into a room. And tonight, watching you up there," he stepped closer, "I can't do it anymore." Her pulse skyrocketed. "Dominic, we work together. You're my boss. If people found out, I know the complications. I know what people will say, what they'll think." His hand came up to cup her cheek. "But I also know that I haven't been able to stop thinking about you for over a year, that you're the first person I want to tell when something good happens, and the only one I want beside me when things go wrong. That tonight, watching you shine without a safety net, all I could think was that I'm falling for you and I don't want to stop." Sophia's world narrowed to the point where his thumb traced her cheekbone, to the warmth in his eyes, to the terrifying, exhilarating possibility of letting herself want this. "I could lose everything," she whispered. "Or we could gain everything." He leaned closer, his forehead touching hers. "I'm not asking for an answer tonight. I'm just asking you to think about it. Think about us." Before she could respond, someone cleared their throat behind them. Sophia jerked back to find Marcus standing there, his expression apologetic but urgent. "Sorry to interrupt, but Dominic, we have a problem. Someone just leaked information about the AI platform to TechCrunch. Confidential technical specs that weren't supposed to go public until after we signed our partnerships." Dominic's entire demeanor changed, the tender man disappearing behind the CEO mask. "When?" 20 minutes ago. The article's already getting traction." He looked at Sophia, conflict clear in his eyes. Then his phone buzzed. Then again. Then it wouldn't stop. "I have to handle this," he said, already pulling away. "Sophia, we'll talk later." "Go," she said, even as something in her chest twisted painfully. He hesitated for just a moment, then he was gone, disappearing into the crowd with Marcus at his heels. Sophia stood alone in the alcove, Vanessa's words echoing in her mind. "Nothing matters more to him than Hartwell Innovations. Not me, not you, not anyone." And watching Dominic walk away, she couldn't help but wonder if that was true. Chapter 5. The Leak. Sophia's hotel room felt suffocating. She'd kicked off her heels the moment she'd entered, leaving them in a careless heap near the door. The midnight blue gown was draped over a chair. Now she sat curled on the bed in sweats and an old college t-shirt, her laptop miraculously resurrected by the hotel's tech support open in front of her. The TechCrunch article stared back at her like an accusation. Hartwell Innovations' secret AI platform, revolutionary or risky? Whoever had leaked the information had done their homework. Technical specifications that should have been locked behind multiple security layers were detailed with clinical precision. The article raised questions about data privacy, algorithmic bias, and whether Hartwell's platform could be exploited for surveillance. All valid concerns. All things their legal and ethics teams had addressed. But presented without context, stripped of the safeguards they'd built in, the platform sounded dangerous. Her phone buzzed. A text from Marcus. Still in emergency meetings. Going to be an all-nighter. You should get some sleep. Then another, from her assistant Rachel. Are you okay? Just saw the article. Do you need anything? Sophia didn't respond to either. She was too busy reading through the comment section, watching in real time as their carefully built narrative crumbled. Sounds like Skynet. Another Silicon Valley bro thinking he can monetize surveillance. Hard pass on AI that reads emotions. That's creepy AF. 3 months of work. Destroyed in 20 minutes by someone with access and an axe to grind. A knock at her door made her jump. Sophia checked the peephole, then felt her heart lurch. Dominic stood in the hallway, still in his tuxedo pants and white shirt, though he'd lost the jacket and bow tie somewhere. His hair was disheveled, like he'd been running his hands through it repeatedly. She opened the door. You should be in crisis management meetings. I needed to see you. He stepped inside, and she caught the exhaustion in his eyes. I'm sorry. For leaving like that, you had a crisis. I understand. Do you? He moved closer, and she could see the tension in every line of his body. Because I keep thinking about Vanessa. Sophia's stomach dropped. What? She did this. The leak. Dominic's voice was tight with barely controlled anger. We traced it back to her. She had access to some of those specs from when we were dating, before I changed my security protocols. She must have held on to them, waiting for the perfect moment. Can you prove it? Our lawyers are working on it. But even if we can, the damage is done. 3 of our potential investors have already backed out. 2 are reconsidering their position. And we have about 18 hours to do damage control before this narrative becomes permanent. He sank onto the edge of her bed, head in his hands. Sophia had never seen him like this, vulnerable, uncertain, stripped of the confidence that usually surrounded him like armor. We'll fix it, she said, sitting beside him. We'll issue a statement, schedule press interviews, show them the privacy safeguards. That's not why I'm here. He looked up, and the raw emotion in his eyes stole her breath. I'm here because when everything was falling apart, when I was watching my company's reputation implode, all I could think about was you. About how I'd left you standing there after telling you I was falling for you. About how Vanessa was right. Right about what? That I always choose the company. His laugh was bitter. That's what she said when we broke up. That I'd never put her first, never make her a greatly priority. And tonight, I proved her right. Again. Sophia's chest ached. You were dealing with a crisis. There's always a crisis. He turned to face her fully. That's the nature of running a company. There will always be emergencies, always fires to put out, always something demanding my attention. And if I can't figure out how to balance that with... He reached for her hand. With this. With you. Then I'm setting us both up for heartbreak. So what are you saying? I'm saying I don't have answers. I'm saying I want you more than I've wanted anything in years, but I'm terrified of hurting you. I'm saying that Vanessa is my cautionary tale, and I don't want us to end up like that. Sophia looked at their joined hands, at the way his thumb traced gentle patterns against her palm. She thought about Vanessa's warning, about the risks of getting involved with her boss, about all the practical reasons this was a terrible idea. Then she thought about standing on that stage, feeling Dominic's support like a tangible force, about the way he'd believed in her when she'd had nothing but improvisation and hope, about how he'd driven her to be better, dream bigger, reach higher, not because he was her boss, but because he saw her potential and refused to let her settle for less. You want to know what I think? Sophia said quietly. I think Vanessa was hurt, and hurt people weaponize their pain. I think she wanted what you couldn't give, which was probably you abandoning your life's work to focus on her. And when you didn't, she made you the villain. Sophia, I'm not finished. She squeezed his hand. I also think you're right that there will always be crises. That's not unique to you, that's life. My mom worked 2 jobs while I was growing up. There was always something. A bill we couldn't pay, a shift she couldn't miss, an emergency that derailed our plans. But you know what? She still showed up for me. Maybe not perfectly, maybe not always when I wanted, but in the ways that mattered. Dominic was watching her intently now, hope and fear warring in his expression. Tonight, you left to handle a crisis that could destroy your company, Sophia continued. That wasn't you choosing work over me. That was you being responsible. If you'd stayed here, I would have worried about your company. I would have felt guilty, because I understand what Hartwell Innovations means to you. What does it mean to me? It's not just a business, it's your purpose. It's how you're trying to make the world better. She shifted closer. And I don't need you to choose between me and your purpose, Dominic. I need you to let me be part of it. The way we were tonight. On that stage, that's what I want. Partnership. Not you protecting me from your world, but us navigating it together. Something in his expression cracked open. You have no idea how much I needed to hear that. But, Sophia added, I need something from you too. Anything. Honesty. If this gets too complicated, if the company politics become toxic, if the board decides I'm a liability, I need you to tell me. I need us to make decisions together, not you making them for me because you think you're protecting me. I can do that. He cupped her face in both hands. Sophia, I meant what I said earlier. I'm falling for you. Hell, I've probably been falling since you sent me that 17th email with a mock campaign for a product I hadn't even finalized yet. She laughed despite the tears suddenly threatening. That email was desperate. That email was brilliant. Just like you. He leaned his forehead against hers. I know this is complicated. I know we're going to face judgment and gossip, and people questioning whether you earned your position. But I also know that I don't want to spend another day pretending I don't feel this. Pretending you're just my colleague when you're so much more. What am I? Sophia whispered. You're the person who makes me want to be better, who challenges me and grounds me, makes me remember why I started this company in the first place. His thumb traced her lower lip. You're the woman I want beside me through every crisis and every victory. If you'll have me. Sophia's heart was pounding so hard she could barely breathe. This was a threshold. Once they crossed it, there was no going back to professional distance, to carefully maintained boundaries. But maybe she didn't want to go back. Kiss me, she said. Dominic's eyes darkened. Sophia, you said not after tonight. Well, tonight's almost over. She slid her hand into his hair. So kiss me, Dominic. Before I lose my nerve. He didn't need to be asked twice. His lips met hers with a tenderness that made her chest ache. A gentle exploration that somehow felt more intimate than anything she'd experienced before. Sophia melted into him, into the warmth of his arms as they wrapped around her, into the feeling of finally letting herself want this without guilt or hesitation. The kiss deepened, growing more urgent. Dominic's hand slid into her hair, careful not to disturb the pins still holding her updo in place. Sophia's fingers traced the strong line of his jaw, feeling the slight stubble there, memorizing every detail. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Dominic rested his forehead against hers. I should go, he said, though he made no move to leave. Before I forget every good intention I have. Stay. The word escaped before Sophia could think better of it. Just stay. We can work on the crisis response together. Like we always do. His smile was worth every risk. Yeah? Yeah. She gestured to her laptop. I've been reading the comments, and I have some ideas about how to reframe the narrative, but I could use your technical expertise to make sure I'm not oversimplifying the safeguards. Always working. But there was affection in his voice, not criticism. They settled on the bed, laptop between them, and dove into crisis management. Sophia drafted response statements while Dominic fact-checked technical details. They debated messaging strategies, argued over tone, and slowly built a communications plan that acknowledged concerns while highlighting the ethical framework they'd built. Somewhere around 3 a.m., Sophia's head drooped onto Dominic's shoulder. He shifted carefully, letting her settle more comfortably against him, and kept working one-handed while his other arm wrapped protectively around her. When she woke a few hours later, dawn was painting the sky in shades of pink and gold. She was tucked under the covers, still in her sweats and t-shirt. Her laptop was closed on the nightstand, and Dominic was asleep in the chair by the window, his jacket draped over him like a blanket. Even in sleep, he looked exhausted. But he'd stayed. He'd worked beside her, protected her rest, and remained when he could have left. Sophia slipped out of bed and draped a real blanket over him, letting her hand linger for a moment on his shoulder. His eyes fluttered open, immediately alert. "Morning," she whispered. His smile was sleepy and devastatingly sweet. "Morning. Sorry, I meant to leave before you woke up, but I must have. I'm glad you stayed." She meant it in more ways than one. Dominic stood, stretching out the kinks from sleeping in a chair. "So, about last night." Sophia's stomach fluttered with nerves. "Which part?" "The part where I kissed you, where you told me you wanted partnership, where we crossed about a dozen professional boundaries." He moved closer, tucking a loose strand of hair behind her ear. "I need to know if you regret it." "Do you?" "Not even slightly." His voice was firm. "But this is your call, Sophia. You're the one who has more to lose. If we really do this, I need to know you're sure." She thought about all the reasons this was risky. Then she thought about how right it had felt, kissing him, working beside him, letting herself be vulnerable and finding support instead of judgment. "I'm sure," she said, "but we need ground rules." "Agreed. You want coffee while we figure them out?" "God, yes." They ordered room service, and over coffee and pastries, they hammered out the terms of their relationship. They'd keep it quiet until after the product launch settled down, not because they were ashamed, but because they didn't want the narrative around Sophia's competence to get tangled up with their relationship. They'd work with HR to ensure everything was properly disclosed, and if the board or company politics ever made their relationship untenable, they'd face it together. "One more thing," Dominic said, catching her hand across the table. "At work, I'm still your boss. I'll still give you feedback, expect excellence, and occasionally drive you crazy with my perfectionism. This doesn't change our professional dynamic." "Good," Sophia said, "because I'd hate to think you'd go easy on me just because we're what are we, exactly." "Well, I'd like to say we're dating, but that feels inadequate." He smiled. "How about we're two people who are falling for each other and figuring it out as we go? I can work with that." His phone buzzed, then hers, then both at once, insistently. They exchanged glances and checked their messages. Sophia's stomach sank as she read the email from the company's PR director. "Emergency all-hands meeting in 1 hour. Business casual." "This is mandatory." "This is about the leak," Dominic said grimly. "What do you think they'll do?" "Depends on whether our damage control worked." He stood, already shifting into CEO mode. "I need to get back to my room and change. Can you be ready in 45 minutes? Make it 30. He leaned down and kissed her, brief but potent. "For luck." Then he was gone, and Sophia was left scrambling to shower, dress, and prepare for whatever came next. Chapter 6. Damage Control. The conference room felt like a pressure cooker. Every member of Hartwell Innovations' executive team was present, along with their legal counsel, PR director, and head of security. People whispered in tight clusters, speculation running wild. Sophia slipped into a seat near the back, trying to be invisible. She'd chosen a simple navy blazer and slacks, professional armor for whatever was coming. Marcus caught her eye from across the room and mouthed, "You okay?" She nodded, though her stomach was churning. Dominic entered last, and the room fell silent. He looked impeccable in a charcoal suit, every inch the powerful CEO. But Sophia could see the tension in his shoulders, the tightness around his eyes. "Thank you all for coming on short notice," he began. "By now, you've all seen the TechCrunch article. I want to address what we know, what we're doing about it, and what this means for the company going forward." He gestured to the head of security, a former FBI agent named Patricia Wells. "Patricia has traced the leak to its source." "Patricia?" Wells stood, her expression grim. "The leak originated from documents accessed during a period when Vanessa Kingsley had temporary system privileges, approximately 14 months ago. We're working with our legal team to pursue action against both Miss Kingsley and TechCrunch for publishing proprietary information." Murmurs rippled through the room. Everyone knew about Dominic and Vanessa's relationship. Now everyone knew she'd betrayed him. "However," Wells continued, "the damage is done. We need to focus on mitigating the fallout." The PR director, James Morrison, took over. "We've drafted a comprehensive response that Sophia and Dominic worked on last night." He nodded at her, and suddenly everyone was looking. Sophia felt heat creep up her neck. We're positioning this as an opportunity to demonstrate our commitment to transparency and ethical AI development. James pulled up a presentation, the one Sophia had outlined in the early morning hours. Seeing her words and strategy displayed for the executive team felt surreal. We're scheduling a press conference for this afternoon, James continued. Dominic and Sophia will present together, addressing each concern raised in the article and demonstrating the safeguards we've built into the platform. We're also releasing a white paper on our ethical framework and inviting independent audits. That's a lot of transparency, someone said. Are we sure we want to expose ourselves like that? The alternative is letting Vanessa's narrative define us, Dominic said sharply. I'd rather control our story than spend the next 6 months playing defense. He caught Sophia's eye, and she saw the question there. Back me up? Sophia stood, her heart hammering. The article raised valid concerns about privacy and algorithmic bias. Dodging those concerns makes us look guilty, but if we address them head-on, show our work, and invite scrutiny, we demonstrate confidence in our product. More importantly, we show respect for the very real fears people have about AI technology. And if the audits find problems? Another executive asked. Then we fix them, Sophia said simply. Our goal isn't to be perfect out of the gate. It's to be trustworthy, to show that we take these concerns seriously, and we're willing to be accountable. There was silence. Then one of the board members, an older woman named Catherine, who'd always been skeptical of Sophia, spoke up. I have to say, I wasn't sure about this approach when James first presented it, but Sophia's right. We can't out-innovate bad PR. We need to lead with ethics, even if it's uncomfortable. Others nodded. The tension in the room shifted from panic to cautious determination. Dominic's expression softened with relief. Then we're agreed. James, coordinate with our legal team on what we can and can't say publicly. Patricia, I want a full security audit if Vanessa found vulnerabilities in our system. There might be others. And everyone else business as usual. We don't let this derail the launch. As the meeting broke up, people clustered around Sophia, asking questions about messaging strategy, timeline, and how they should handle inquiries from their own networks. She fielded each question with growing confidence, slipping into the role she'd carved out over 2 years of proving herself. But she was hyper-aware of Dominic across the room, deep in conversation with their legal counsel. They hadn't looked at each other directly since the meeting started maintaining professional distance, just as they'd agreed. It shouldn't have felt like a loss, but somehow it did. Sophia. She turned to find Catherine approaching, the board member who'd supported her idea. That was impressive, Catherine said. Taking a crisis and reframing it as an opportunity, that's exactly the kind of strategic thinking we need. Thank you. Though honestly, Dominic deserves half the credit. We developed the approach together. I'm sure you did. Catherine's smile was knowing. You two have always worked well together. I've noticed. Sophia's pulse quickened. We make a good team. Indeed. Catherine's expression turned serious. Which is why I'm going to give you some unsolicited advice. Be careful. Office politics are vicious, especially for women. If people think you're receiving special treatment, romantic or otherwise, it won't matter how good you actually are. I'm not accusing you of anything, Catherine said, gently. I'm just saying that perception matters, and the way Dominic looks at you. She paused. Well, it's the kind of look that gets people talking. Heat flooded Sophia's face. I'll keep that in mind. Catherine patted her arm and walked away, leaving Sophia feeling exposed and anxious. Was it that obvious? Could everyone see the shift between her and Dominic? And if they could, what did that mean for her credibility? Sophia. Dominic appeared at her elbow, his voice low. My office. 5 minutes. He walked away before she could respond, leaving, and her to follow at a professional distance. Chapter 7. Lines in the Sand. Dominic's office was a study in controlled elegance. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a panoramic view of the city. Sleek, modern furniture balanced comfort and power. And on his desk, amid neatly organized files and a state-of-the-art computer setup, was a framed photo of a younger Dominic with an older couple, his parents, Sophia assumed. She'd been in this office dozens of times. But today it felt different, charged with something she couldn't quite name. Dominic closed the door behind her. We have a problem. Catherine talked to you? Catherine, Marcus, and 3 other people who've apparently decided to share their concerns about my obvious favoritism toward you. He ran a hand through his hair, frustration evident. This is exactly what I was worried about. Sophia's stomach nodded. What did they say? That I look at you differently, that I'm too quick to defer to your judgment, that giving you co-lead on the press conference, after 2 years at the company, sends a message about why you were really promoted. His jaw tightened. They're questioning your competence because of me. The words hit like physical blows. So what do we do? I don't know. Dominic moved to the window, staring out at the city. If we acknowledge the relationship now, it validates every suspicious whisper. People will assume you've been sleeping your way to success, that every achievement was actually about us. Your credibility gets destroyed. And if we don't acknowledge it, we lie. Sneak around. Pretend there's nothing between us while everyone speculates anyway. He turned to face her. Either way you lose. Sophia forced herself to think past the hurt, past the unfairness of it all. What about you? What do you lose? Me? He laughed bitterly. I'm the CEO. The man. The one with institutional power. At worst, people think I'm unprofessional. You're the one who'll be labeled a gold digger, a social climber, someone who used her looks instead of her brains. That's not fair. No, it's not, but it's reality. He crossed to her, his expression anguished. Sophia, I would never ask you to sacrifice your career for me. If this is going to hurt you, don't. She held up a hand. Don't you dare make this decision for me. We agreed on honesty, remember? On facing things together, but no buts. Sophia moved closer, forcing him to meet her eyes. You're right that this is complicated. You're right that I'll face judgment you won't. But you know what? I've faced judgment my entire career. For being young, for being a woman, for not having the right connections or pedigree. I've had to prove myself 1,000 times over. This is just one more time. This is different. Is it? She challenged. Or is it that you're afraid of what people will think of you for dating an employee? Afraid they'll see you as unprofessional or weak? Dominic flinched. That's not... Isn't it, though? Sophia's voice gentled. Dominic, I know you want to protect me. But protecting me by making my decisions isn't respect, it's control. If we're going to do this, I need you to trust that I can handle the consequences of my own choices. He stared at her for a long moment. You're right. God, you're right, and I'm being an idiot. Not an idiot, just scared. She reached for his hand. I'm scared too. But I'm also sure. About you, about us, about the fact that I'd rather face gossip and judgment than spend another day pretending this isn't real. What are you suggesting? We move up the timeline. Tell HR today, so it's officially on record. And after the press conference, when we've proven that we can handle this crisis as a team, we make a simple announcement to the company. No drama, no big production. Just, Dominic and I are in a relationship. It's been disclosed to the appropriate channels, and it doesn't change our professional standards. People will still talk. Let them. Sophia squeezed his hand. I'll prove my worth the same way I always have through my work. And if people can't separate my professional achievements from my personal life, that says more about them than it does about me. Dominic pulled her into his arms, holding her tight. You're incredible. You know that? I'm terrified, she admitted against his chest. But I'm also tired of being afraid. They stood like that for a moment, drawing strength from each other. Then Dominic's intercom buzzed. Mr. Hartwell, your 11 o'clock is here. He sighed and released her, though his hand lingered on her waist. Rain check on this conversation, only if you promise me something. Anything. Stop trying to protect me from everything. I'm tougher than I look. She smiled. After all, I survived improvising a product launch in front of 200 people. I can handle some office gossip. His expression softened with affection and pride. Deal. Now go prepare for that press conference. And Sophia? Yeah? Thank you. For being brave enough for both of us. She left his office feeling oddly light despite the weight of what they were facing. Yes, there would be gossip. Yes, there would be judgment. But she'd been judged before and survived. She'd prove herself before and would do it again. And this time, she wouldn't be doing it alone. Chapter 8. The Press Conference. The press conference was held in a hotel ballroom, packed with journalists, tech bloggers, and industry analysts. Cameras lined the back wall. Microphones bristled from the podium like a hostile forest, and Sophia's heart was trying to escape through her ribcage. Breathe, Dominic murmured beside her, his hand briefly touching the small of her back before he stepped up to the microphone. Professional distance, they'd agreed, but even that small touch helped center her. "Thank you all for coming on short notice," Dominic began. "I know many of you have questions about the article published in TechCrunch yesterday. Rather than issue a standard corporate denial, we wanted to address your concerns directly and transparently." He was brilliant, calm, authoritative, but approachable. Sophia watched him handle the opening remarks, explaining the leak's origins without dwelling on Vanessa's betrayal, acknowledging the validity of privacy concerns while contextualizing the platform's capabilities. Then he gestured to her. "Sophia Castellano, our senior marketing director, will walk you through the ethical framework we've built into the platform from day one." Sophia stepped up to her own microphone, very aware of dozens of cameras trained on her. She thought about Catherine's warning, about the whispers that she'd slept her way to this position. Then she thought about the presentation she'd improvised the night before, about the years of work that had led to this moment. "Let's talk about why AI makes people uncomfortable," she began. "It's not just about privacy or data security, though those are critical concerns. It's about control. When we interact with AI, we're often not sure what it's doing with our information, how it's making decisions, whether it really understands us or is just simulating understanding." She clicked to the first slide, a simple diagram of their platform's architecture. "That's why we built transparency into every layer of our system. Users can see exactly what data is being collected, how it's being analyzed, and what conclusions the AI is drawing. They can correct misunderstandings, set boundaries, and opt out of any features that make them uncomfortable." A journalist raised her hand. "But doesn't that defeat the purpose of AI? If users have to constantly monitor and correct it, you're just adding more work." "Great question," Sophia said. "The monitoring is optional and customizable. Some users will want granular control, others will trust the system and rarely check in. The point is that control exists, users aren't forced to. Trust us blindly." She fielded question after question, explaining technical safeguards in accessible language, addressing worst-case scenarios, and acknowledging where they still had work to do. Dominic jumped in with technical details when needed, and they fell into the rhythm that had become natural over 2 years of collaboration. Then someone asked the question she'd been dreading. "Miss Castellano, you've been with Hartwell Innovations for 2 years and were promoted to senior director after just 18 months. Some might say that's an unusually fast rise. Can you address concerns that your position has more to do with personal relationships than professional merit?" The room went silent. Sophia felt every eye on her, waiting to see how she'd handle the barely veiled accusation. Dominic started to intervene, but she caught his eye and shook her head slightly. "I've got this. You're right that my promotion was fast," Sophia said calmly. "Let me give you some context. I started as a junior marketing associate. Within 6 months, I'd increased our social media engagement by 340% and developed a campaign that brought in 15 new enterprise clients. At the 1-year mark, I led the rebrand that you all covered extensively, the one that repositioned us from another tech startup to innovation leaders. When I was promoted to senior director, I'd just completed a product launch that exceeded sales projections by 200%. She paused, letting that sink in. My rise was fast because I delivered results, consistently, measurably. And yes, I worked 60 to 80-hour weeks to do it, because I don't come from money or connections. This job was my shot, and I wasn't going to waste it. She met the journalist's eyes directly. If you're asking whether I've earned my position, the answer is yes. My track record speaks for itself. Anyone who wants to question that is welcome to review my performance metrics, which are available through our PR team. The journalist had the grace to look slightly abashed. Someone in the back started clapping, and others joined in, not universal, but enough to break the tension. Dominic's expression held barely contained pride and something fiercer. When the applause died down, he stepped forward. I want to add something to what Sophia said. In my 8 years running this company, I've hired hundreds of people. I've made promotions based on every reason you can imagine: merit, potential, diversity goals, occasionally because someone had connections I needed. But Sophia's promotion was the easiest decision I've ever made, because she was already operating at a senior director level months before I officially gave her the title. He gestured to the room. Half of you are here because of campaigns she developed. You know her work. You've covered it. So yes, let's question fast promotions and nepotism and all the ways corporate structures can be exploited. Those are important conversations. But let's not pretend that a talented woman rising quickly must have gotten there through improper means. That's a sexist narrative that hurts everyone. The room erupted with questions, but James Morrison stepped forward to manage the rest of the press conference, giving both Dominic and Sophia an out. As they left the stage, Sophia felt simultaneously triumphant and exhausted. They'd handled it well, she knew they had, but the implication behind that question would linger. "You were perfect," Dominic said once they were in the privacy of a back hallway. "I was defensive. You were honest. There's a difference." He wanted to touch her, she could see it in the way his hands flexed at his sides. But there were too many people around, too many eyes watching. "Sir?" James appeared, slightly out of breath. "The responses are already coming in. Initial coverage is positive, they're focusing on your transparency angle. And Sophia, someone already posted a compilation of your campaign results on Twitter. It's going viral." "Viral?" Sophia repeated. "Looks like you have fans in the industry who are tired of seeing women's competence questioned." James grinned. "This is good for us. Really good." He rushed off to handle more press inquiries, leaving Sophia and Dominic alone again. "See?" Dominic said softly. "I told you that you didn't need me to protect you." "Well, your defense didn't hurt. That was for me as much as you. I'm tired of people assuming successful women must have slept their way to the top." He checked his watch. "We have about 30 minutes before the next crisis demands our attention. Want to grab lunch?" "Lunch sounds perfect." They walked to a nearby cafe, maintaining careful professional distance. But under the table, Dominic's knee pressed against hers, and Sophia felt the contact like an anchor. "After today," he said quietly, "after we've given HR our disclosure and made the announcement to the team, I want to take you on a real date. Not hiding, not sneaking around. A real, public date where I get to hold your hand and not worry about who's watching." Sophia's heart swelled. "I'd like that." "Good," he smiled. "Because I plan to spoil you shamelessly. Dominic Hartwell, are you trying to sweep me off my feet?" "Trying?" I thought I'd already succeeded. His expression turned serious. "Sophia, I know today was hard. I know what's coming will be harder. But I want you to know that I'm in this. Completely. Whatever challenges we face them together." "Together," Sophia agreed, and squeezed his hand under the table. They finished lunch and headed back to the office, ready to file their relationship disclosure with HR and face whatever came next. Chapter 9. Going Public. The HR office was antiseptically neutral, all beige walls and ergonomic furniture. Patricia Chen, Hartwell's head of HR, reviewed their disclosure paperwork with professional detachment. "You understand that this will need to go to the board for review," she said. "Given the power, dynamics involved, they'll want to ensure there's no conflict of interest or appearance of favoritism." "We expected that," Dominic said. "And Sophia, you'll be assigned a new supervisor for performance reviews and compensation decisions. Dominic will no longer have direct authority over your career trajectory." Sophia nodded. They'd discussed this possibility. It made sense, even if it felt like losing something valuable. Who would my new supervisor be? Most likely Catherine Reed, since she oversees our strategic divisions. Is that acceptable? Catherine, the board member who'd warned her about perception issues. Sophia couldn't decide if that was ironic or perfect. "That works," she said. Patricia made notes, then looked up with something almost resembling warmth. "For what it's worth, I think you two are handling this correctly. Too many executives try to hide relationships, and it always ends badly. Transparency is better, even if it's uncomfortable." "Thank you," Sophia said, surprised by the support. They left HR with official stamps on their disclosure and a meeting scheduled with the board for the following week. The hard part was over, except it wasn't. Word spread through the office like wildfire. By the time Sophia returned to her desk, her phone was exploding with messages. Some supportive, some curious, some decidedly hostile. From Marcus, called it, "Congrats. Want to grab drinks later?" From Rachel, "Oh my God, this is like a real-life romance novel. Are you okay?" From an unknown number, "Sleeping your way to the top is pathetic." Sophia deleted the last message without responding, but it stung anyway. She dove into work, trying to ignore the whispers she could feel even through her office walls. The press conference coverage was mostly positive. Their stock price had actually gone up. The crisis was becoming a success story. But in the hallways, in the break rooms, in the quiet conversations that stopped when she walked by, a different story was taking shape. She was the woman who'd seduced her boss, The opportunist who'd used her looks to climb the ladder. Never mind her track record. Never mind her results. The narrative was already being written, and it wasn't kind. A knock on her door made her look up. Catherine Reed stood there, expression unreadable. "Got a minute?" Catherine asked. Sophia gestured to the empty chair, bracing for another warning, but Catherine surprised her. "I owe you an apology," she said without preamble. "This morning I warned you about perception issues. That was cowardly. I don't understand. I let you believe that you needed to worry about how your relationship looks, instead of telling you that anyone who questions your competence because of who you're dating is the problem, not you." Catherine leaned forward. "I've been on this board for 10 years. I've watched talented women get overlooked, questioned, and dismissed, while mediocre men with connections get promoted. I'm tired of it. So here's what's going to happen." She pulled out a folder. "This is your performance history. Every metric, every achievement, every piece of data that proves you earned your position long before you and Dominic became involved. I'm presenting this to the board next week, and I'm recommending you for VP of Marketing." Sophia's jaw dropped. "VP? Catherine, I've only been senior director for 6 months, and you're already operating at VP level. The press conference today proved it. You handled a hostile question with grace, defended your competence without being defensive, and turned a potential PR disaster into a viral moment of support for women in tech." Catherine smiled. "That's executive leadership. And I'll be damned if I let office gossip prevent you from rising to where you belong." Tears pricked Sophia's eyes. "Thank you. You have no idea how much this means." "Oh, I have some idea." Catherine's expression turned knowing. "I was in your position once, 30 years ago. Different industry, same dynamics. I let fear of judgment cost me a relationship I treasured, and I've regretted it ever since. Don't make my mistake, Sophia. Be brave. Love who you love. And don't let anyone make you smaller to fit their comfort zone." After Catherine left, Sophia sat in stunned silence. VP of Marketing. It was more than she'd dreamed of achieving this early in her career. And Catherine was right, she was ready for it. Her phone buzzed. A text from Dominic. "My office?" She found him standing by his window, tension evident in every line of his body. "What's wrong?" she asked. "Vanessa's lawyers sent a cease and desist. She's claiming we're slandering her by accusing her of the leak." He turned, and his expression was thunderous. "She's threatening to sue for defamation and emotional distress." "Can she win?" "Our lawyers don't think so. We have evidence. But a lawsuit means months of legal battles, negative press, and her painting herself as the victim." He slumped against the window. "This is going to get ugly." Sophia moved to stand beside him, looking out at the city. "So we fight. We have truth on our side. Truth doesn't always win in court. Maybe not, but it wins in public opinion." She thought about the press conference, about the viral support she'd received. "Dominic, people are tired of watching powerful people escape consequences. If Vanessa wants to make this a public battle, we can show exactly what she did and why. That means exposing our relationship earlier than we planned, making it part of the narrative." "I know." Sophia took his hand. "But isn't that better than letting her control the story? We can acknowledge that yes, we're together, and yes, that probably contributed to her deciding to sabotage us out of revenge. But we can also show that her actions were illegal and unethical regardless of her motivations." Dominic studied her face. "You're sure about this? It's going to be intense scrutiny." "I'm sure." And she was. "Besides, Catherine just told me she's recommending me for VP of Marketing." Dominic's expression transformed from worry to pure joy. "VP? Sophia? That's incredible." He pulled her into his arms, spinning her around before setting her down gently. "You deserve this. God, you deserve this so much. I haven't gotten it yet. The board still has to approve." "They will. Catherine doesn't make recommendations lightly." He cupped her face, his thumb tracing her cheekbone. "I'm so proud of you, even though this complicates everything. Especially because of that." His smile was fierce. "You could have played it safe, kept your head down, waited until this mess with Vanessa was resolved. Instead, you're stepping up, taking risks, refusing to let anyone else's drama define your career trajectory. That's who you are, Sophia. That's why I'm falling for you." The words hit her square in the chest. "Falling? I thought you already fell." "I did. I am." He leaned his forehead against hers. "I'm completely gone for you, And it's terrifying and wonderful, and I don't want to stop. Sophia's heart felt too big for her chest. Good. Because I'm falling too. Have been for longer than I wanted to admit. They stood like that for a moment, wrapped in each other, the city sprawling below them. Then Dominic's phone rang, shattering the moment. He checked the screen and grimaced. It's our lawyer. I have to take this. Go. I'll see you later. Dinner at my place? I'll cook. You cook? Badly. But I'll order from that Italian place you love and pretend I made it. Sophia laughed. It's a date. As she left his office, she felt lighter than she had in days. Yes, there was a potential lawsuit looming. Yes, there would be more gossip and judgment. But she had Catherine's support, a possible promotion, and a man who looked at her like she was the best thing that had ever happened to him. She could handle whatever came next. Chapter 10. Battle Lines. The next 2 weeks were a whirlwind. Vanessa's lawsuit was filed, complete with a press release painting her as a wronged woman driven to desperate measures by a vindictive ex-boyfriend. The tech blogs ate it up, dissecting every detail of Dominic and Vanessa's past relationship, speculating about why they'd really broken up. And then someone leaked that Dominic was now dating Sophia. The story exploded. Tech CEO dates employee while suing ex, read one headline. Billionaire's revenge romance? Asked another. Suddenly, Sophia's face was everywhere in articles, on social media, in think pieces about power dynamics and workplace relationships. Most of the coverage was ugly. She was called a homewrecker, despite the fact that Dominic and Vanessa had been broken up for over a year. She was accused of seducing her boss for career advancement. Her achievements were dissected and dismissed as evidence of favoritism. Don't read the comments, Marcus advised over coffee in the office break room. Seriously, Sophia. Nothing good lives in comment sections. But she couldn't help herself. She read the speculation about her motives, her character, her body. She read comparisons to Vanessa, who was older, more polished, came from money. She read people calling her a gold digger, a social climber, 1,000 variations on the same theme. She wasn't good enough. They don't know you, Rachel said fiercely, having appointed herself Sophia's unofficial bodyguard. They don't know how hard you work, how brilliant you are. They're just threatened by a woman who refuses to apologize for her success. Sophia wanted to believe that, but the constant scrutiny was wearing her down. Work became a refuge. She threw herself into preparing for the VP presentation to the board, developing new campaign strategies, and helping the legal team build their case against Vanessa. The evidence was damning digital fingerprints showing exactly when Vanessa had accessed the files, communications proving she'd shopped the information to multiple outlets before. TechCrunch bit. But Vanessa's lawyers were good. They argued that the information was outdated, that Vanessa had accessed it during their relationship when such access was appropriate, that she'd merely shared old specs with a journalist friend without realizing they were still confidential. It was plausible enough to create doubt. And in the court of public opinion, doubt was all Vanessa needed. Dominic was handling it worse than Sophia. She could see the guilt eating at him, guilt that his past relationship was destroying her reputation, that his attempt to protect her had backfired spectacularly, that she was paying the price for his choices. Stop it, she told him one night at his penthouse apartment, where they'd started spending most evenings to avoid the paparazzi staking out her building. Stop blaming yourself for Vanessa's actions. If I hadn't dated her, then she would have sabotaged you some other way. Toxic people don't need specific reasons to hurt others. Sophia moved to where he stood by the floor-to-ceiling windows, wrapping her arms around him from behind. She's not doing this because of me. She's doing this because you moved on and she couldn't handle it. Dominic turned in her arms, his expression haunted. They're destroying you. Every article, every comment, they're making you out to be something you're not, and I can't stop it. I don't need you to stop it. I need you to trust that I can survive it. She pulled back enough to meet his eyes. Dominic, I grew up poor in Queens. I put myself through business school while working 2 jobs. I've survived worse than mean tweets and bad press coverage. What I can't survive is you pulling away because you think you're protecting me. I'm not pulling away. Aren't you? She gestured around the apartment, at the takeout containers from dinners they'd eaten in silence, at the way he'd been distant even when they were together. You're here physically, but you're not present. You're so busy, feeling guilty that you've forgotten we're supposed to be partners. The words landed like a slap. Dominic's expression crumbled. You're right. God, Sophia, you're right, and I'm doing exactly what I promised I wouldn't do. So stop. She took his hand. Talk to me. Tell me how you're actually feeling instead of trying to shoulder everything alone. He was quiet for a long moment. Then, I'm terrified that you'll realize this isn't worth it, that the cost is too high, that one day you'll wake up and resent me for dragging you into my mess. That's not going to happen. You don't know that. I do, actually. Sophia squeezed his hand. Because I'm not with you for your money or your status or what you can do for my career. I'm with you because you make me laugh, because you challenge me to be better, because you see me the real me, not the carefully constructed professional version, and you love what you see. I do love you. The words came out raw, unguarded. I know it's fast. I know we haven't been together long, but I love you, Sophia. And the thought of losing you because of my past mistakes is not going to happen, she repeated firmly. Dominic, I love you too. And love means weathering storms together, not running away when things get hard. He pulled her close, burying his face in her hair. I don't deserve you. Probably not. But you're stuck with me anyway. His laugh was shaky but genuine. They stood like that for a while, holding each other, drawing strength from the contact. Finally, Dominic pulled back. Okay, no more guilt spirals, no more shutting you out. We face this together. Together, Sophia agreed. His phone buzzed. Then hers. They exchanged glances and checked their messages. The legal team had sent an update. They'd found evidence that Vanessa had coordinated with 2 other tech companies to time the leak for maximum damage during Hartwell's investor meetings. It wasn't just revenge, it was corporate sabotage. This changes everything, Dominic said, already dialing his lawyer. Sophia read through the evidence, her mind racing with implications. If they could prove corporate sabotage, Vanessa wasn't just a vindictive ex, she was a criminal. The charges would be serious, the consequences severe, and Sophia felt no sympathy whatsoever. Chapter 11. The Board Meeting. The boardroom was intimidating by design. Mahogany table, leather chairs, oil paintings of past board members staring down with stern expressions. 8 board members sat arranged like a jury, with Catherine at one end and the chairman, Robert Winters, at the other. Sophia had presented to the board before, but never like this. Never with her career, her relationship, and her reputation all on the line. Miss Castellano, Robert began, his tone neutral. Thank you for joining us today. We've reviewed your performance metrics and Catherine's recommendation for promotion to VP of Marketing. Before we make a decision, we have some questions. Of course, Sophia said, keeping her voice steady. Your relationship with Mr. Hartwell. This from James Thornton, a board member who'd always been skeptical of Dominic's leadership style. Can you walk us through the timeline? Sophia had prepared for this. Dominic and I have worked together for 2 years. Our relationship remained strictly professional until the night of the gala, approximately 3 weeks ago. The timing was unintentional. Emotions that had been building came to a head during a crisis situation. We filed proper disclosure with HR within 48 hours and have since restructured reporting lines to eliminate any conflict of interest. Some might say the timing was convenient, James continued, right as you were being considered for a major promotion. I understand the optics, Sophia said calmly, but the promotion recommendation came from Catherine, not Dominic, and it's based on 2 years of documented results, not 3 weeks of dating. If you're concerned about favoritism, I'm happy to be evaluated by an independent external consultant. That seemed to surprise them. Catherine smiled slightly. Robert consulted his notes. Your campaigns have indeed been successful. The rebrand increased our market recognition by 65%. The last product launch exceeded projections by 200%, and your handling of the recent crisis turned a potential disaster into positive press coverage. Thank you, sir. However, James interjected, there's a question of judgment. Dating your boss, regardless of when proper disclosures were filed, shows a certain lack of professional boundaries. Sophia felt anger flare but kept her expression neutral. With respect, Mr. Thornton, I disagree. Maintaining professional boundaries would have meant hiding the relationship, continuing to work together without disclosure, and allowing potential conflicts of interest to go unaddressed. Instead, we were transparent, proactive, and willing to accept structural changes to ensure fairness. That demonstrates good judgment, not poor judgment. She's right, Catherine said. We can debate the wisdom of workplace relationships all day, but Sophia and Dominic handled this correctly. They disclosed promptly, accepted oversight, and continued to deliver excellent work. That's exactly what we should expect from executives who find themselves in this situation. Another board member, Diane Chen, spoke up. What about the media attention? Your relationship is now public, and it's not being portrayed favorably. How do you plan to handle that? By doing my job, Sophia said simply. The media will say what they want. I can't control that. What I can control is my work product, my professionalism, and my results. If I'm promoted to VP, I'll continue delivering the same level of excellence I've demonstrated for 2 years. And eventually, my work will speak louder than speculation about my personal life. And if it doesn't, James pressed, if clients or partners are uncomfortable working with you because of the publicity, then I'll work twice as hard to prove them wrong. Sophia met his gaze directly. Mr. Thornton, I think we both know that women in leadership face scrutiny that men don't. If I let fear of judgment dictate my choices, I'd never have applied for this job in the first place. I'd never have pushed for the campaigns that made this company successful. I'd never have taken any of the risks that define innovation. She leaned forward. You can promote me or not, that's your prerogative. But if you're going to pass on me, let it be because you genuinely don't believe I'm qualified. Not because you're worried about optics or gossip or what people might say. I deserve better than that. And frankly, so does Hartwell Innovations. Silence filled the room. Sophia's heart pounded, but she held her ground. Robert exchanged glances with the other board members. Miss Castellano, can you give us the room? Of course. Sophia left, her legs shaky with adrenaline. She found Dominic waiting in the hallway, pacing like a caged tiger. How did it go? He asked immediately. I either just secured my promotion or talked myself out of a job. Sophia collapsed into a chair. Hard to say which. He sat beside her, taking her hand. You were brilliant. I know you were. How do you know? You weren't there. Because you're always brilliant. His smile was soft. And because you don't know how to be anything less than your authentic self. That's one of the things I love about you. They sat in silence, hands clasped, waiting. 20 minutes felt like 20 hours. Finally, the boardroom door opened. Catherine emerged, her expression carefully neutral. Sophia, they're ready for you. Sophia squeezed Dominic's hand once, then stood and walked back into the boardroom. All 8 board members were watching her. Robert gestured to a chair. Miss Castellano, we've made a decision. Sophia sat, her heart in her throat. Your performance record is exemplary, Robert continued. Your handling of the recent crisis demonstrated executive-level judgment, and your responses today showed both confidence and humility, a difficult balance that many senior leaders never achieve. He paused, and Sophia held her breath. Therefore, effective immediately, you are promoted to Vice President of Marketing, with a corresponding salary increase and equity grant. Congratulations. Relief and joy flooded through her in equal measure. Thank you. I won't let you down. We don't believe you will, Catherine said warmly, though I should mention James voted against the promotion. Sophia looked at James, who had the grace to look slightly uncomfortable. I don't doubt your competence, he said, but I do worry about the precedent this sets. What message does it send when we promote someone who's dating the CEO? It sends the message that we evaluate people on their merits, not their personal lives, Sophia said calmly, and that we trust our employees to maintain professionalism even in complex situations. Those seem like good precedents to me. James didn't look convinced, but he nodded. I hope you're right. As the meeting broke up, Catherine pulled Sophia aside. You handled that perfectly. James will come around, he just needs time to see that the world hasn't ended. Thank you for championing me. I didn't champion you. I presented facts. Catherine smiled. You championed yourself. Now go celebrate with Dominic. You've earned it. Sophia found Dominic still in the hallway, now joined by Marcus and Rachel, who'd apparently been waiting for news. Well? Marcus demanded. Sophia couldn't keep the grin off her face. You're looking at the new VP of Marketing. The hallway erupted in celebration. Marcus whooped. Rachel squealed and pulled her into a hug, and Dominic was looking at her like she'd hung the moon in stars, his expression so full of love and pride that it took her breath away. Congratulations, VP Castellano, he said softly. Thank you, Mr. Hartwell. Oh, for God's sake, just kiss her already, Marcus said, exasperated. Dominic raised an eyebrow at Sophia, a silent question. She nodded, and he pulled her close, kissing her right there in the hallway with their colleagues watching and cheering. When they broke apart, Sophia was laughing and crying and felt more alive than she ever had. "Tonight," Dominic murmured against her ear, "I'm taking you somewhere special, to celebrate properly." "Where?" "You'll see." Chapter 12. Rooftop Confessions. The rooftop restaurant was exclusive, expensive, and absolutely breathtaking. String lights created a canopy of stars overhead. The city sprawled below them, glittering like diamonds. And their table, positioned near the edge, offered privacy despite the other diners scattered throughout the space. Sophia wore the midnight blue gown from the gala, the one that had started everything. Dominic was in a perfectly tailored suit, and the way he looked at her made her feel like the most beautiful woman in the world. "This is incredible," she said, taking in the view. "How did you even get a reservation?" "I own the building," she laughed. "Of course you do." "Actually, I don't. But I know the owner, and I called in a favor." His smile turned sheepish. "I wanted tonight to be special. It already is." They ordered champagne and appetizers, falling into easy conversation about everything except work. Sophia learned that Dominic had wanted to be an architect before falling in love with coding, that he played piano badly but with enthusiasm, that his biggest fear wasn't failure but mediocrity, building something that worked but didn't matter. "What about you?" he asked. "What did you dream about before marketing?" "Writing, actually. I wanted to be a novelist." Sophia smiled at the memory. "I wrote terrible teenage angst poetry and started about 15 novels I never finished." "Why didn't you pursue it?" "Reality, student, loans, my mom's medical bills, the need for a steady income." She shrugged. "Marketing was practical, and I discovered I loved it, the challenge of finding the right words to make people care, the strategy behind building a narrative." "You're still telling stories," Dominic observed. "Just different ones." "I suppose so." She sipped her champagne. "Maybe someday I'll write that novel. When I retire as CEO of my own marketing firm." "CEO, huh? Ambitious." "You inspired me." Her smile was teasing. "If you can build a tech empire from nothing, I can certainly manage a marketing agency." "I have no doubt." His expression grew serious. "Sophia, I need to tell you something." Her stomach fluttered. "That sounds ominous." "It's not, I promise." He reached across the table for her hand. "The legal team found evidence that Vanessa coordinated with our competitors to sabotage us. She's being charged with corporate espionage and theft of trade secrets. It's a federal crime." Sophia's eyes widened. "Federal? That's serious." "Very. Her lawyers are already trying to negotiate a plea deal." Dominic's jaw tightened. "She'll likely serve time. Her reputation in the industry is destroyed. Everything she's built gone." "How do you feel about that?" "Relieved. Vindicated. A little sad." He met her eyes. "I loved her once. Or I thought I did. Watching someone self-destruct, even someone who tried to destroy me, it's not satisfying. It's just sad." Sophia squeezed his hand. "That makes you a good person." "I don't feel like a good person. I feel like someone who dodged a bullet and dragged you into the crossfire." "Stop." She said it gently but firmly. "We've been over this. I chose to be here. I chose you. And yes, the last few weeks have been hard, but they've also shown me what we're capable of together. We handled a crisis, faced scrutiny, and came out stronger. That's not something to regret. Even with the gossip, the articles calling you a gold digger? Even with that." Sophia paused. "Though I did enjoy the viral Twitter thread defending me. Did you see that? Someone compiled every major campaign I've led, complete with metrics and testimonials from clients. It was incredibly satisfying watching people realize I actually know what I'm doing." Dominic laughed. "I may have contributed to that thread. Anonymously, of course." "You didn't." "I absolutely did. You think I was going to sit back and watch people question your competence without fighting back?" Sophia's heart swelled. "You're ridiculous. I'm in love with you. There's a difference." The words hung in the air between them, heavy with meaning. They'd said it before, in whispers and moments of crisis. But this was different. This was a declaration, calm and certain and absolute. "I love you too," Sophia said. "So much it terrifies me sometimes." "Good terrified or bad terrified?" "Good. Like standing at the edge of something vast and unknown, knowing that jumping is going to be the best decision of my life. Dominic stood and moved to her side of the table. For a moment, Sophia thought he was going to kiss her. Instead, he knelt, her breath caught. "I wasn't planning this tonight," he said, pulling a small velvet box from his pocket. "I bought this ring 3 days after the gala, which is insane and impulsive and probably proves I've lost my mind. But then I kept carrying it with me, waiting for the perfect moment, and I realized there is no perfect moment. There's just us, and this feeling, and the certainty that I want to spend my life with you." He opened the box, revealing a stunning diamond ring, simple, elegant, exactly her style. "Sophia Castellano, you are brilliant and brave, and the best thing that's ever happened to me. Will you marry me?" Tears streamed down Sophia's face. She was vaguely aware of other diners watching, of someone pulling out a phone to record the moment. But none of that mattered. "Yes," she said, laughing through tears. "God, yes." Dominic slipped the ring onto her finger, then stood and pulled her into his arms, kissing her deeply while applause erupted around them. When they finally broke apart, both were laughing and crying and completely overwhelmed. "That was insane," Sophia said. "We've been together for 3 weeks. 4, technically. That doesn't make it less insane. Do you want to take it back?" He was grinning, clearly knowing the answer. Not even a little bit. She looked down at the ring, watching it catch the light. "Though people are going to have opinions, let them. We know what's real." He kissed her forehead. "Besides, after everything we've been through, dealing with people's opinions about our engagement timeline should be easy." Fair point. They finished dinner in a bubble of happiness, making ridiculous plans for a wedding that was simultaneously too soon and not soon enough. Sophia couldn't stop looking at the ring, couldn't stop smiling, couldn't stop feeling like she was living in a dream. "Come home with me," Dominic said as they prepared to leave. "Stay the night. Stay every night." "Are you asking me to move in?" "I'm asking you to build a life with me, starting tonight." Sophia pretended to consider it. "I suppose I could be convinced, though my lease isn't up for 3 months. I'll buy out your lease." "Of course you will." But she was smiling. "Yes, Dominic. I'll move in with you. I'll build a life with you. I'll marry you and probably drive you crazy and love you through all of it. I'm counting on it." Epilogue, 6 months later. The wedding was small and private, held in a vineyard in Napa Valley with only their closest friends and family. Sophia wore a simple white dress, elegant and understated. Dominic cried during his vows, which made her cry, which made everyone cry. Catherine officiated, having gotten ordained online specifically for the occasion. Marcus was Dominic's best man. Rachel was Sophia's maid of honor. And when they were pronounced husband and wife, the applause was deafening. The reception was perfect, good food, great wine, and dancing under string lights as the sun set over the vineyard. "Mrs. Hartwell," Dominic murmured as they swayed to their first dance. "How does it sound?" "Strange. I'm keeping Castellano professionally. I know. But I still like saying it. You're incorrigible. You married me anyway." "Questionable judgment on my part," Sophia teased. He pulled her closer, and she rested her head on his shoulder, feeling utterly content. The last 6 months had been a whirlwind. Vanessa had taken a plea deal and was serving 18 months in federal prison. The lawsuit was dismissed with prejudice, and Hartwell Innovations' AI platform had launched to critical acclaim and commercial success, exceeding even their most optimistic projections. Sophia's promotion to VP had been validated by results. She'd secured 3 major partnerships, launched a campaign that won industry awards, and built a team that was the envy of their competitors. The whispers about her relationship with Dominic had faded, replaced by recognition of her competence and leadership. Not everyone had come around. James Thornton still gave her skeptical looks in board meetings. Some industry peers still made snide comments about how she'd married the boss. But Sophia had learned to tune out the noise and focus on what mattered. Her work, her team, and the man who looked at her like she was his entire world. "What are you thinking about?" Dominic asked. "How happy I am. How right this feels." She pulled back to meet his eyes. "How grateful I am that my laptop died that night at the gala." He laughed. "Best technical failure of my life." "Mine too." They danced through sunset and into the evening, surrounded by people who loved them. And when the party finally wound down, they drove to the cottage they'd rented for the weekend, ready to start their honeymoon and the rest of their lives. So, Dominic said as they crossed the threshold. How does it feel to be married to your former boss? Complicated, wonderful, a little bit terrifying. Sophia smiled. How does it feel to be married to your VP of marketing? Like the best decision I ever made. He pulled her close. Second only to pulling you onto my lap that night and telling you everything was going to change. You never actually pulled me onto your lap. Details. He kissed her softly. The spirit of the moment was there. Sophia laughed and kissed him back, pouring everything she felt into it, love and gratitude and joy and hope for all the years to come. They'd started with a crisis, a dead laptop, and a moment of reckless honesty. They'd survived scrutiny, scandal, and more complications than any new relationship should face. But they'd survived together, built something real together, and now they were married, partners in every sense of the word. I love you, she whispered against his lips. I love you too, he replied, now and always. And as they lost themselves in each other, Sophia thought about that night at the gala, about standing on stage with nothing but her words and her courage. She'd been terrified then, uncertain, afraid of failing, but she'd jumped anyway. And Dominic had been right, she hadn't needed a safety net. She'd had something better, herself, her strength, and a partner who believed in her even when she struggled to believe in herself. That was enough. That was everything, and it was only the beginning.